Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'd like to apologize for this delay this evening. I was all set to come on time, but our beloved PIA obviously had other ideas. So, my apologies. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the CFA Society Pakistan, its president and board members for inviting me to the 18th Annual Excellence Awards ceremony. I'm delighted to be part of this prestigious awards ceremony where once again leaders of the business and financial community in Pakistan have gathered to celebrate excellence, outstanding performance, and high standards of business practices. Pakistan needs such prestigious awards to develop standards in practice and improve quality of life to distinguish itself on an international scale. This would not have been possible without the active participation of the notable business community that is present in this August gathering today. I also want to extend my warmest greetings to the recipients of awards today. All of your hard work and perseverance have led you to this proud moment in your lives. Now let's talk about the economic vision of Pakistan. I would like to take you back to 1968 when we were the fourth largest economy in Asia. We were bigger than South Korea, we were bigger than Saudi Arabia, we were bigger than Thailand, and we were bigger than Turkey. Along with South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, we were the rising stars. Our growth rate was impressive, and what you call the tigers, we were amongst them. Our planning commission was recognized for its excellence, and South Korea actually came and emulated our 5-year plan, and they went and implemented it, and we didn't. But after the fall of East Pakistan, we lost our way. First came the nationalization of industry, banks, insurance companies, shipping, so much so that we even nationalized ginning factories and rice husking mills. And then we ventured into the Afghan war needlessly. To date, we have not come out of it. We have lost 100,000 people and probably close to 200 billion in our economic damage. So by 2015, our per capita was around $1,400 from $150 in 1968. But the same yardstick, South Korea, which had a per capita of $200 versus our $150, was at $27,500. And they took our 5-year plan. It's not that, we just did not have a plan, except we did not execute it. Well, that's what's life. So where we go from here? As you know, this government, when it came in 2018, it had a large current account deficit, an overvalued rupee, and growth which was funded through debt. They entered an IMF program, a tough IMF program, with front-loaded conditionalities, which led to a slowdown in our economy. And then came COVID. COVID had another damning effect on our economy, and we actually went into a negative growth of 0.5%. But I must say that PM Imran Khan's visionary handling of the COVID pandemic, which has been recognized the world over through smart lockdowns, helped. Concurrently, he invested in agriculture, in housing, in industry and exports, all areas which actually promoted employment. This resulted into a 3.94% growth last year, and of course it was a welcome growth. Nobody expected that. Start of that year, people thought we'll just grow by 1.5%. Some said 2%. We actually grew by almost 4%. But as this year, when it started and I was the finance minister, we said, let's change gears. Let's now grow. We have a population of 220 million people, and we need 2 to 3 million jobs every year. So we have to grow. So how are we going to grow? We will have to grow, and the slogan is inclusive and sustainable growth. Inclusive and sustainable growth. And for inclusive and sustainable growth, there are certain fundamentals which we have to achieve. Firstly, we have to grow our revenues. Revenues at around 9% tax to GDP, not enough. Because we had achieved a 4% growth, we wanted to go to 5% this year and 6% next year. And for that, 9% is not good enough. So we got to grow our revenues. And we said that we grow our revenues by 23%. We said that we are going to grow our agriculture. Unfortunately, we had become a food deficit country. Can you imagine Pakistan being a food deficit country? Importing wheat, importing sugar, importing, lentils, importing, palm oil. But we are now a food deficient country. And if you add cotton, we last year we spent around $10 billion on import of food and cotton. $10 billion. So we said that's not going to happen again. We are going to spend money revamping our agriculture, the entire value chain. And we are doing that. Then we said that we are going to also make sure that our industry becomes competitive and our exports become competitive. You know that our exports are around 9 to 10% of our GDP. Our imports are around 25% of our GDP. This is unsustainable. What has happened is that our remittances have rescued us to date, which also grew very well last year, grew by 26% to $29 billion. For how long are we going to depend on the remittances? So we said we are going to give incentives to our industry and to our exports, especially IT. So we are also laying emphasis on housing. As you know, the mortgages in Pakistan were 0.125% of our GDP, whereas India is 10, Thailand is 24, Malaysia is 36. You know that. In the US, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac has $17 trillion in mortgage finance or guarantees. So once we fix the foreclosure law, this is where we also started, putting our money. We also knew that unless we do not stabilize the energy sector, which is bleeding, and bleeding very heavily, this year alone, I will be giving around $770 billion of subsidies to the power sector. And if you add, what flows into, the circular debt, I can tell you it's almost 2% of our GDP. We cannot sustain that. So I think we said that we are going to fix it. And also, I can tell you, most people don't realize this. Fact is that we also have to make our financial sector responsive to the needs of our economy. Our financial sector is only 33% of GDP, and lending is only 15% of GDP. Your ADR is at 42%. So and I can tell you more about financial sector because 85% of the credit is spent in 9 cities, 75% of that on the corporate side. And everybody else is 5%, 6% or so. So it is dysfunctional. You got to fix it. So after laying emphasis on all those things which I mentioned, we said very, very differently from the others who came over here that we are going to target the 4 million people, the lowest section of our income pyramid. The 4 million households who actually keep waiting for the trickle down, and trickle down doesn't happen because trickle down reaches the lowest level if it's sustainable growth for 10, 15, 20 years. It does not come down to that level if the growth is for 4 or 5, 6 years. So these guys have been waiting for now 70 years for the trickle down effect. So we said, no, we are not going to wait for that. We are going to do something what we call bottom-up approach. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden is also trying to do that in the US. So this bottom-up approach, we are going to reach the 4 million households, and we are going to give them what? Agriculture loans interest-free, business loans interest-free, housing loans almost interest-free. Give them, technical training and health insurance. A complete package, complete economic package to 4 million households, probably in next 4 years, 1.4 trillion rupees in these. But you will ask, how are we going to recover? Who is going to give them? We realize the larger banks cannot do that because probably they're not geared to give small loans. So we came up with a great idea that the larger banks will wholesale finance to the NBFIs and microfinance, NGOs like Akhuat and others. And they have been doing this for the last 30 years. Shoaib Sultan, Dr. Amjad Saqib, they are legends. And the recovery rates are 98, 99%. So this is when the pennies dropped and we said, this is how we have to go. So we have launched that, and the good news is that it's been less than a month that we launched, and there are 820 hits already. And we are only doing it for KP, Balochistan, Azad Kashmir, Gilgit Baltistan, and 5 poor cities of Punjab and Sindh. 820,000 hits, and 215 or 20,000 people are now eligible. So this is really working. Now is the time to roll out, the loans. Now, where are we on our efforts to rev up our economy? I think we are running a little faster than 5%. Some people say your economy is overheating. Agriculture is doing well, crops are doing well. This time even cotton, we believe, versus 5.7 million bales last year, this year probably we'll have 9.5. All other crops are doing well. Sugar cane this year we could have 88 million tons. So agriculture is doing well, and the indicators are, and frankly, what are the indicators? There has been record sale of motorcycles in the rural areas, and there is probably 1.1 trillion rupees which has gone into the agriculture sector. So I think they are doing well. Our LSM is growing at double digit. Our revenues are growing by 37% over last year. Never happened. When I just gave a budget of 23%, everybody and their uncle said, he's mad. It's a joke. He's saying he'll go from 4.7 trillion rupees to 5.8 trillion. And all these economists who I have a lot of respect for said 5.3, 5.4, that's it. I can tell you today, in 4 months, we are ahead by our targets by 230 billion rupees. So if I can keep this momentum, inshallah, we are going to cross 6 trillion. And it's not only, the people talk about, this growth is because the imports have gone up and sales tax and custom duty has given them this growth. No. Your income tax is growing by 32%. It's all round growth. People have to go through the numbers. So people must give credit where it is due. Our electricity usage is up by 13%. 13% year on year. So that means the economy is growing. But there is a concern that current account deficit, which has resurfaced, may damage the recovery. I can assure you that the numbers are balanced as of now, because there are vaccines which are paid for by World Bank, Asian Development Bank and others. Then the RDA, which comes, below the line, also gives us around $225 million. The books are balanced. That's why net international reserves of state banks are growing. But make no mistake, if we believe that imports are growing faster and we cannot fund them, we are going to actually clamp down. We are going to slow down. Why? Because we cannot afford to have unsustainable growth. So to make this growth sustainable, what do we have to do? I think we have to do 3 things. One is to increase our saving rate. At 14, 13, 14, 15% is not good enough to support a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8% growth. Our banking footprint is only 33%. As I said, it must go up. Bangladesh is 50 and India is 80 or 90%. The minute you just keep grow your banking footprint, reduce your cash in circulation, which is almost 30, 40%, 40% of your deposits, I think our saving rate will start going up. Our export coverage of imports has to go up. I believe that we have 2 to 3 years when remittances will support us, but thereafter we must take those actions today. In 3 to 4 years' time, our export coverage of imports has to be between 70 to 80%. So what are we doing about it? Whereas our traditional exports are growing at a healthy rate of around 30, 35, 20, 32%. Our IT is growing at almost 50%. This year will grow at 75%. And we're giving them all the incentives that they should start growing at a rate of, 100% from next year or year after. So that in 5 to 6 years, IT exports reach around $50 billion. And that's how we are going to bridge this gap. And the last is, we have to grow our revenues, as I said. We were around 9%, 9.5% last year. This year we are going to be around 11.5% of GDP. Next year we are going to be 13.5% of GDP. And in 3 to 4 years or 5 years, we should reach 20%. Unless we do not reach 20%, we will not be able to sustain this 6 to 7% growth rate. I think we also have to pay attention to the state-owned enterprises. 15 of them are losing around ₹500 billion. That's it. That's not a good thing. We're losing 1% of our GDP. When I know people over here sitting, we fixed Habib Bank, used to lose 10 billion rupees a year. Today makes 35 billion. So these companies who are losing around 500 billion rupees, they could be making profit of 500 billion. A turnaround of around 2% of GDP. We got to fix it, and we have not been able to fix it. Successive governments have tried. They lack the political will, but we have to show the political will. Fortunately or unfortunately, I just was associated with the turnaround of Habib Bank. So, we'll be able to do something about them. We also have to make sure that whatever CPAC has given us, infrastructure, SEZs, and the fact that Chinese are actually outsourcing 85 million jobs to other countries, we'll be able to leverage CPAC for our own benefit. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that with the proper economic planning, political will, we will regain the lost economic glory which Pakistan deserves. I urge all of you to be a part of this journey. Thank you very much.